Hello and welcome to the Daddler Soul Sessions for July. It's Thursday, the 3rd of July. It's Independence Day Eve for all that celebrate. Father Independence will be coming down the chimney tonight to put the Independence presents underneath the Independence tree. Hey, I'm joking, but it could happen in the current climate, all right? Yeah, anyway, that's the political satire done for the evening. I've got some cracking entertainment for you. If you would like to stick around, there's going to be some amazing stuff going on. As always, we talk to people here who've got something to say about being a dad, being a man, about modern life, about what's going on. And today is no different from any other. And it's also my opportunity, of course, to do my this morning menu thing, which I always very much enjoy. Coming up, you've got Dan Flanagan's Daddler Soul updates. Dan is our Uber boss here at Daddler Soul, and he'll be telling you what's going on within the Daddler Soul community over the next few months. Ben Morehouse, we've spoken to him a couple of times. He does extreme challenges to raise money for saving babies' lives. He's got another one coming up to tell us about that. And Gareth Wall is just an amazing bloke who does loads of great work with dads. He's got a book out called Be a Super Dad, Reflective Advice for Fatherhood. And he'll be on to have a chat with us about that, give us some insight into what made him write it and how long it took him to get around to writing it. That's what I want to find out, obviously, because I am slack and I never get around to doing those sorts of things. Anyway, that's what's going on the Daddler Soul Sessions this evening. Stick around and enjoy it and let your friends know that it's happening and tag them in and everything. First of all, the chat I recorded with Dan earlier. Here's the man, the myth, the legend, the Uberlord, the Grandpa Simpson, the Don Corleone of all of the Daddler Soul, Stan Flanagan. Yay!
Oh, yeah. Oh, I want that as a ringtone. Fact check: Don Corleone, not so much. Don Tagliatelle, probably more for my belly.
Beautiful, yeah. Don Castor.
That doesn't have the same sort of je ne sais quoi, does it?
It doesn't. No, it doesn't. It certainly doesn't. You know, if you've ever been, you'll know. I can say that I lived there for a very small amount of time. Very small. It's Daddler Soul. How's it going with you? How's everything going? Are you all right? Are you okay?
I'm all right, but I'm ginger. It's a heat wave, so essentially I'm trying not to go out anytime in the day. And even just getting up off the sofa to go to the kitchen, make a cup of tea or something, and come back and it's been like I've had a shower. I am moist all over, and not in a good way, put it that way.
I went for a run earlier on today, and there was chafing on the nipples. I don't mind telling you.
Ow. I know I've seen people getting up very, very early to take their kids to the park, you know, like before 7 a.m. It's a bit like they've got dogs, right? They need exercising, but they've got to do it before, you know, the sun comes out. They can't walk the pavement.
Yeah. Wow. It's true. It's just horrible. It's horrible being outside. My daughter's got running club after school, and I think, you know, they're really cautious about not doing that when it's too hot. So she'll come home and have to deal with her rather than have that sweet hour and a bit of work to do.
Have they called it off yet, the school? It's too hot. Now we've got to send them back. What does it have to reach to be able to get that alarm call?
I don't know, but I mean, because is there a set temperature? I mean, I've not had an email. This is live email checking, not had an email yet. You know that when you were at school, was it always the same that there was like, if it gets to whatever temperature, they have to send us home? And it never did. They never did.
No, I think potentially it got too cold and our boilers didn't work once and we did get sent. But I went to a pretty kind of old-fashioned boys' school that had army cadets on there. So we had to be in almost North Pole conditions for them to make that decision, because it was like, shoot up, boy, get on with it.
They did at our school. It was when it's snowing. It was if the bus companies were going to stop the buses, and If they did, then they'd have to send the last bus possible, pick up the kids that needed it, and take them away. And I guess they just thought, well, we could keep, because I walked to school and back.
Yeah.
They thought, they could have gone, well, you kids can stay, but I think they didn't want a riot on their hands, so they definitely just said, if they can't come to school, you can't go home. That's it. You're fine. You're done.
Yeah. And they're all down the pub with their little pots of roll your own tobacco. And
allegedly, never,
yeah.
On that tip though, and then this did happen, so I'm okay. I'm not going to mention his name, but anyway, a new headmaster came in and he had this big thing where he was like, we're going to have a little motto for the school: quality, success, good manners. Yes. And then within a couple of years, he had stepped down from his role after being found to have claimed the same journey on expenses by 3 or 4 different transport types. Which is, it could have been an accident. It's a difficult accident to make, to go, I drove, I got the train, I was on a bus, I flew. But,
Where was that? Was it a big journey? Or because that seems like a lot of work.
I don't know. I can't remember. I had left by then, but the thing, my brother was still there. And the thing is, I think that the local authority were going to sweep it under the carpet a little bit, but then the kids got wind of it. The kids went on strike to get rid of the headmaster. They didn't care. They weren't bothered about the budget of the school or what people were doing on expenses.
Yeah.
They just saw it as a good excuse to shout a lot. And then they got rid of their headmaster, which was quite spectacular.
That's pupil power. That's early Grange Hill. Let's go and protest. And how wonderful. But I can imagine, you probably weren't, or they probably weren't protesting for, ethical reasons. It's like, this is a chance to
it's
mess with them.
Chance to cause a little bit of chaos. We get to walk around and shout. There's a vaguely legitimate reason, so we'll stick with that. And all good. But and he got the sack.
And he got the sack.
And I don't know what happened to him after that. I might Google him. I do remember his name. I don't know how I remember his name. I left that school 30 years ago, and I can still remember that headmaster's name, including his first name. And I certainly won't be saying it here, just in case I've got any of the facts wrong, because that would be bad.
Yeah, and we do tend to forget things, but we also tend to remember quite vividly things from 3 decades ago. But find out where my door keys, or where I left my phone, or what I got actually up from the sofa to get from the kitchen 4.5 seconds ago.
No. It took me, earlier on, I was writing something. It took me 10 minutes to think of the word proportionate. 10 minutes to think of that. But I can remember the old headmaster and his dodgy expenses.
Yeah, really useful stuff.
Anyway, we are now 6.
The stuff that makes you go on.
We are 6.5 minutes in. We have not mentioned Dad Lasol one bit. So 6.5 minutes into our little chat. We've not mentioned Dad Lasol. So we probably should mention what's going on with Dad Lasol. Dan, what's going on with Dad Lasol?
Oh, God, it's boring. What's going on? Well, we're still celebrating our wonderful event a couple of weeks ago at the Amex, the UK's largest ever dad play date. I'm still having horrors from it, but it was wonderful. Where are we? On Thursday, so we've got our Brighton play date at Plus X. Beautiful venue. Most importantly, really, really amazing air conditioning. Right? So you get take kids out. They've got to be energized or exercised if they're a small puppy. Go to Plus X. It's indoors. They can make as much noise and as much mess as they want. I think we're in a little sort of planning stage between now and September. And I kind of got it in my head. It's like, when you go back to school, you'll have new school uniform, you'll have a new pencil case, you'll have new eraser, and everything will be ordered. So from sort of now until then, there's a a lot of planning going on because we've got some new locations coming up. We're going to develop some more interesting events. We've got a block party actually in about a month's time that I've got to get me around as well. So Sunday, August the 10th at the Brighton Open Air Theatre. Mums, grannies, aunties, uncles, all in a beautiful amphitheatre in the park. We've run it for the last few years. It's a bit of a jewel in the crown, you know. Lovely, lovely event. So I'll give you more details about that. And yeah, we are just doing a lot of homework, a lot of research, getting our ducks in order, because the last few weeks, even the last few months, have been chaotic and very
You wouldn't
stressful.
want it any other way. Come
So
on,
thank you,
you
Jake.
wouldn't want it any other way.
Yes, I really would. I really, 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 really would like some order. Chaos is brilliant, but I realise when I have an idea, I create chaos, and then other grown-ups actually have to come and deliver the promises that I've made. So I'm trying to be a little bit more conscious of that. But I'm looking at our board now. You know, we've got the next 6 months of events all planned in. I'm not allowed to book anything else in. But yeah, it's going on. Had a really wonderful Dad's Only session in Brighton on Thursday night. So the lovely Gavin Willis, who runs a very successful marketing agency, came in and shared his story. It was work-life balance, you know, what it was like going through a divorce, having young kids during lockdown, and it was quite profound because the people that know him within the Sussex area, he's a pretty prominent figure, and to have him to be so vulnerable, it was really, really strong. And there was actually, after he came off, there was 3 or 4 lads like queuing up to talk to him and going, wow, shit, what you've said, that's also my story. So it's a lovely bit of role modeling, because from the outside you would, see him as always happy, very successful, blah, 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 blah. And it's not to knock people like that, but I think it's quite reassuring that if you know that people that you think have got it all.
Yeah, there are things going on underneath that we don't know about, and yeah, fascinating.
Yeah, so that was very lovely. And then we followed that straight up with the wonderful Marcus Lewis, who is our magician, that he came to the Amex, melted people's minds, and then he came after the Dad's Only session. So we've just gone through a conversation about depression and divorce. 5 minutes later, he's melting minds with these card tricks and stuff like that. It was a beautiful up and down of emotion, and I think that's what we do really well, and I want to do more of it, because it's great to have those very open and very important subjects, but it's also good to have a bit of a laugh and let off some steam and maybe learn some stuff. So if we can pull those together in our 3-hour sessions, really profound speakers tackling some quite challenging issues, but then also we've got a chance to let off some steam, maybe learn, because that's a nice night out.
Like
as well,
a nice little mixture of things. You don't want it to be too boring. You don't want to know what you're going to expect at every time. You want light and shade.
I think that is for the poster. So Dad the Soul, light and shade. So yeah, we are next few months. He says it's actually the next few weeks. Putting our homework on with the idea that we'll have a motorbike outside, wearing. Really nice, actually. We're not recording this tomorrow or the day after, because right outside the door is a giant park where the Pride
that would
Festival
be pretty loud,
up.
right?
So it would be, and there's a host of things like Taylor Swift and Little Mix tribute acts. Actually, I've got a bone to pick with this, right? On the poster, Little Mix, Taylor Swift, so and so and so and so, and you obviously know it's not the real artist, right? But nowhere in brackets have they actually put that.
So they just want you to come along thinking the actual Taylor Swift's playing Worthing. With no disrespect to Worthing, but She's not, is she?
No, this is it. So it is, and yeah, again, some of those covers bands and performers are very good, but I just think from an advertising perspective, it is. And I go, yeah, of course, it's not the real one.
Well, did you hear about it? It was in the 90s. They advertised. There was an advert for a Peter Andre gig, and they had Peter Andre and then a little kiss at the end. And people bought tickets and were annoyed when it turned out it wasn't Peter Andre. It was a tribute act called Peter Andrex. For the kiss, they made it look like a kiss, but it was the X on the end.
No, I'd not heard. I thought you were going to say people brought tickets for a Peter Andre gig.
Yeah, they wanted the tribute. Yeah. I think you've got to really remember a time in the 90s where Peter Andre was actually quite a big deal, I think. Whereas,
the biggest deal is in the film Human Traffic, where Danny Dyer's character is talking about him in the back of a cab and what he'd actually like to do to Peter Andre.
You never know.
Oh, you were Peter Andrex. Yeah. Actually, it's a very funny, iconic scene for the people who remember it. But it'd be really interesting to get Danny Dyer and Peter Andre in a room now, because I imagine the amount of stick, because this was just after, I suppose, Peter Andre had maybe his career dipped a little and he won his way down. It's like kicking a man while he's down for essentially sticking big tube socks down his wide fronts.
Oh, those were the days.
No, still are, mate. Still are. That's it now. It's just to mop stuff up.
Oh dear.
I'm in leaks. I didn't mean anything rude.
Good news. That's enough. I think we're done.
Is that enough?
I think we're out. I think we're done. I think that's it. Forever.
I've been cancelled.
Cool. Thank you very much, Dan. That was very much appreciated. Lots of good information. And Dad La Soul, go to dadlasoul.com for more stuff about Dad La Soul. Thank you, Dan.
And more conversation.
Hi everybody, I hope everyone's keeping well. So I'm just stopped off during tonight's training just for a few moments to let you all know about my upcoming 2 extreme challenges within 1 week this July for our little charity, the Calipatra Morehouse Foundation. Our charity was set up in honour of our daughter Calipatra, who was stillborn back in October 2018. Her death was fully preventable. All the funds we raise goes to research to help save babies' lives, and so other families don't have to experience the devastation that we did and still do. So next month in July, my trainers are coming back on. On July the 12th to the 13th, I'll be walking 120 miles non-stop from the Angel of the North in Gateshead down to Manchester. And then 6 days later, I'm flying over to Rhodes Island in Greece. And on Sunday, July the 20th, I'll be taking on the Prophet Ilyas Monastery Mountain Road, a total of 50 times, less than 6 hours after landing. So I'll be getting to Rhodes about midnight, hopefully getting a few hours sleep if there's no delays, and my kit will be coming on only hours after, and I'm taking on Prophet Ilyas Monastery Mountain Road 50 times. It's going to be one hell of a challenge, but as always, I'm ready for it for the reason why, and because of love. Here's something I prepared earlier. So there we are, 2 massive extreme challenges coming up within 1 week for myself this July. It's going to be a brutal week. I know my feet are going to feel it, but for love and because of love, once again I will show that anything is possible. This year I faced some of the biggest hurdles and biggest challenges I never ever thought in a million years I would have to go through and experience, but I did. Sometimes in life things come our way, and some of these things can be massive for mental health and our mental welfare, our mental well-being. Our heart can be broken, but somehow we continue. If you do ever face a challenge or a hurdle, no matter what the size, please just make sure that you do reach out to a couple of people, even just one person. Do not go through your challenge or your hurdle in silence. Talking is so important. I send all my love to the Dadler Soul family. Look after your families, look after yourself. My love is with you all. Please support me if you can. I'm more than sure Jim will be putting the details on the video. Look after yourself, take care. God bless. Thank you.
I am talking to Gareth Wall, our big guest today on the Dadler Soul Sessions. Gareth, how you doing? You all right?
I am good, thanks. It's nice to chat to you, Jim.
It is. It's good to have you on here. I apologise for the headphones and my daughters. Don't know where mine are. Lost them completely. So I'm wearing these sort of purple unicorn type things going on.
Incredibly fetching, and why not?
Yeah, exactly. I think I could start a new fashion trend. I think.
But you're pulling them off, Jim. So
well, thank you very
going.
much. Now, Gareth, the reason you're here is you've actually gone and written a book. You've done a book. You've actually written some words down and released it.
Yes, it's been a labour of love, I will say, Jim. It's been a long road, but I've enjoyed the process. I kind of saying that. It kind of now I'm sort of at the end, but it's been fun to do, because it's the sort of thing I kind of think over the years. You kind of have all these ideas, you're kind of working with dads. I'm seeing very similar things on a regular basis, and you kind of pick things up off other people that you work with, and you think, right, okay, I need to kind of pull this together somewhere. So it's really about trying to contain all the information and knowledge that I had, and kind of be able to kind of give it to someone and go, have a little look at that. The idea really was to present it as a reflective kind of document, so that the way I sort of work, kind of when I do my coaching, is to kind of help dads to see something that they maybe don't see, they don't recognize it. And it'd be really easy for me to just tell people what to do. But if I was to tell you what to do, Jim, you would probably, maybe be dismissive of it. You maybe think, who is this fella trying to tell me what to do? We get put off by that. So by kind of asking questions and making it kind of really reflective, it's much easier for dads to kind of go, oh, okay, I can, once you answer that question yourself, it then becomes your idea. And if it's your idea, you have ownership of it, and then you're more likely to take action.
So what's the concept of the book then, to give it its sell? What's your little pitch for it?
So the book is called Be a Super Dad, Reflective Advice for Fatherhood. So like I said, it is about just trying to stop ourselves from doing the autopilot. We all kind of learned to be dads by being parented, and we took lots of things that we really liked. We maybe took lots of things that we didn't like. But often when there's those things that we didn't like, we decided that I am not going to do that. That is not the way I'm going to parent my kids. But we don't necessarily have something to replace it. So do we always have that kind of idea of, this is exactly how I want to kind of be a dad? And this is kind of been sort of written to kind of help people to kind of explore that a little bit. There's kind of lots of kind of questions in there throughout the kind of book, to be able to kind of help dads to be able to reflect on how they do things day to day. And I know there will be things that dads will read it and they'll go, that works for me. I'm doing that already, which is fantastic. But hopefully there'll be some bits in there that'll help them kind of give themselves that critical examination, be able to kind of look at themselves in the mirror and go, am I actually doing this the way I really want to? And the very kind of first part of the book is about sort of establishing what our values are. So I think if we kind of have a value base and we're able to kind of identify, this is what I stand for, this is how I want to be a dad, we have something to measure it against. So that's really the essence of the book, just to kind of start that process of being able to look at ourselves and go, yeah, I want to change that. I'm going to do that because I want to be a better dad, and ultimately my kids deserve this too.
I think there is a lot, especially when you first a dad, there is a lot of that kind of you're firefighting rather than taking control of everything. So you're in that situation and you're like, how do I react to this? Well, let's find out how I react to this. So that's fascinating to have the idea of working out those principles before. I guess like a lot of people might do at work, isn't it? Where you have the guiding principles, you have the guidelines within which you work and the brand requirements and whatever, or the mission of the company in mind.
Yeah.
And then a situation happens and you don't just go, I'm going to do the first thing I think of. You think, how can I manage this in connection with these values? So I'd never really thought about it like that before in a sort of parenting context. That's fascinating.
Yeah. And just to pick on something you said there, it does feel chaotic when you first become a dad, doesn't it? Kind of my kids now, they're a little bit older, they're 11 and 14, but, I work with lots of new dads and they're kind of like, the whole thing is like I'm flying by the seat of my pants. But what we don't always think about is that really this is a parallel process. Our kids are trying to grow up. They're trying to we hopefully want to turn them into well-functioning adults. That's our kind of aim, isn't it? We want them to kind of do well in school and get jobs and be a functional member of society. But during the process, we are learning as well. It is building the plane whilst we're flying it. So there's a huge part of us trying to kind of work out, like, how do I be a dad? Because it's the whole thing, I say this all the time and I hear it everywhere, but there isn't a manual, is there? And this is maybe some way towards kind of getting that manual and just getting some kind of clarity in terms of how to be a dad. But, that kind of parallel process, if we kind of think about, we're on a journey as well, it enables us to give ourselves a little bit of grace, because sometimes we can be very critical that we didn't get it right, or we weren't particularly happy with how we handled something in particular. But if we kind of think, okay, well, I'm still learning this, because we're constantly learning, then it might feel a little bit easier in order to kind of, okay, right, I made that mistake, now what can I do next? How can I repair this and move on?
So is there like a practical sort of set of questions you can ask yourself, or a practical routine if you do have a situation where you go, I could have handled that better? What do you do? Is that kind of just sit down and map something out for the next time, or is it kind of something else?
Yeah, kind of at the very beginning of the book, there's sort of a chapter really sort of how to use the book, essentially. So trying to, maybe it's journaling, maybe it's kind of finding another dad that is open to kind of exploring this as well. I think having a conversation with somebody else, outside of our head can be really useful to kind of maybe challenge us and to maybe help think about it. But certainly some kind of practical ways to be able to apply some of this knowledge. So it's not just like reading a book and then, that's the worst thing, isn't it? Is if you don't then do the thing after that, trying to kind of get dads to take action on some of this knowledge. And I think hopefully the way that I've kind of framed it is that it will kind of help dads to be able to think about something, because I think once you know something, you can't unknow it. You then have a choice, don't you? I can either kind of continue to do the thing that I've always done, but if someone's kind of asked me a question and I've answered it, and whether I like it or not, I've now got new information, and then you're left with a choice. And with that choice, then it becomes, if you take action, fantastic. But if you don't, there's maybe an element of guilt. There's that kind of knowing that you didn't actually do the thing that you kind of really wanted to do. So, hopefully that will kind of be the driver then for dads to do the thing that, that's going to benefit them and benefit their kids for the future.
It's it's interesting talking about getting the advice or the word or the help or the criticism or in constructive criticism of another dad. It's a lot of what we do is building these communities of dads, because you do find a lot of people find when they become parents, they do lose that sort of social scene. Particularly, like maybe, for dads, particularly, a lot of the groups are all based around mums, it seems to be. Also, I know there's changes possibly afoot, but a lot of the parental leave is mums, so they join toddler groups and things like that. And you sort of lose that group of male friends that you are close to and replace them with the partners of your wife's friends who you don't have anything in common with other than your wives or your other halves have a chat quite often. So it is seeking out that community and seeking out those other men. The ways that we can do that, have you got any kind of coping techniques for that, maybe?
I think it's trying to kind of like start looking on the internet. That's a really good place to start, because are there other things going on locally that you can kind of connect with? Is there anything kind of running within your sort of like your borough, the local authority to run stuff? Not every authority is kind of great at kind of running things for dads, but maybe kind of start there is really useful. Kind of with the advent of the internet, there are so many kind of online forums to kind of be able to kind of connect with other dads, online groups as well. Just being able to kind of, I think, kind of that loss of identity can be a real struggle, isn't it, for dads? Certainly, I think back to when I had kids, it is a wonderful time. Like, there's no getting away from that, but it's really bloody hard. And a lot of my friends had kind of had kids maybe a little bit earlier than me. So kind of when I kind of had kids, it was my friends were doing other stuff, it didn't really kind of align. So I did find it quite hard. So I think trying to kind of find your tribe is incredibly important. So, whether that's kind of looking online, seeing these kind of dad groups, connecting with other dads, like speak, but if you kind of know of other people, maybe you kind of did an antenatal group, ask there, do any of the dads kind of want to chat? Because my experience is that many, many dads are like, what the hell am I doing? Like, am I doing this right? It's so tough, particularly when dads are comparing themselves against their partner. They're kind of seeing maybe baby kind of being closer to mum, but in reality, we're 9 months behind. Like baby and mum is physically connected, and we don't have that. So we've got to kind of do things a little bit differently. So, but because our world has kind of become so much smaller, the only person we can really compare ourselves is to our partner, but that's not really a fair comparison. So we maybe feel kind of inferior, or maybe we're not very good at this to start with. So trying to kind of like speak to other dads and kind of learning actually these kind of feelings, these experiences are really normal, can be really helpful.
I mean, dadlesssoul.com/events is a place to go if you are in the South Coast, particularly. We've got some groups, and there's loads of other groups around the country as well. So worth checking those out. Because it's just finding those other people, isn't it? And as I say, the antenatal class one's a good one. It didn't quite work out for us because we went to the antenatal class, and 4 of the other couples all lived on the same street and knew each other already. And
oh wow,
it's a bit like, all right, so you're just going to continue being friends, and we're just the people we met. And we were also from like a village a bit further away from there as well, so it didn't quite work out as planned, that one. But I think for a lot of people, that's an interesting one, isn't it? I know a lot of people do make those lifelong bonds because you are going through the same thing at the same time, and it's like a shared experience. And if you're doing it at the same time, there is a lot of the ability to kind of share the burden, I guess. How was it for you when you first became a dad?
It was really, really cool. I kind of, sort of very much kind of remember that time on the ward, though. There was a point when numerous doctors and midwives just rushed in, and I'm like, what the hell is going on here? And then there's that kind of sense of anxiety and that kind of panic. It's like, was everything all right, kind of what's going on? And my daughter was born from 1-2s and everything was okay, but in that moment, trying to kind of take it all in, this was like 6 a.m. We've been awake all through the night, you're really tired, and you're not thinking particularly clearly, are you? When things like that are happening. So in that moment, it was kind of thinking, wondering what was happening. But sort of after that, then kind of fatherhood just felt really natural for me. I'm really quite lucky. Sort of, I think one of the things I kind of developed was skin to skin, and doing a huge amount of that. I don't even remember anyone having a conversation with me particularly, but I'm always kind of keen to talk about that now in my work. But, kind of putting my daughter on my chest, and, I would regulate my own breathing in order to kind of like calm her, to kind of, get her to sleep. And then when my son came along, we'd do the same sort of thing. But I just felt, it was something I always wanted to be, was a dad, and it kind of, I was sort of 36. I was a little bit older when I did eventually become a dad. So it was kind of something I've been really looking forward to for a while. But it just felt amazing, and kind of, it's definitely been one of the best things I've done, being a dad.
And at what stage did you start thinking, I could share some of this, I could write a book? How's that been? As you said, that has been a long time coming. When did that come around?
I think I spent a lot of time working in children's residential care. Did that for 18 years, managing children's home. Did my postgrad in child and youth care. Kind of worked with a lot of children that experienced trauma. So I've kind of always had that kind of background. And really, in the last few years, I've been kind of employed working with dads directly, and kind of work with new and expecting dads. So in combination of both of those things, I think it's really kind of the trauma-informed aspect of being able to kind of work with kids of, kind of really, really tough backgrounds. I've been able to kind of like bring that into my work, and working directly with dads. And certainly over the, the last few years, learning a huge amount now about kind of like babies, even more so, because I'm very much used to working with sort of teenagers, and they're very kind of different, so kind of putting all that together just felt like a really, really kind of natural kind of connection, and really wanted to kind of join those dots. And through my kind of conversations with dads, and I'm a coach of Circle of Security, to facilitate that program, which is an attachment-based parenting program. And because of all this kind of knowledge, it just felt really kind of natural to be able to kind of like share that with other people. And by kind of putting it down on paper, it's kind of given me something, I kind of write, stick my flag in the sand, and this is kind of what I stand for, and this is kind of my identity. So it was really kind of about putting all that together, so that I had something quite formal to say, right, this is who I am, and this is what I believe in. So yeah, it was a really kind of interesting process, kind of thinking about writing the book. Sort of started it was always sort of like little nuggets of little things that I kind of would say on a regular basis, and kind of put them in a notes app, and then trying to kind of collate them all together. So it isn't kind of written as like a big tome that you could kind of would need to read. Is something that you could just pick up and just read a couple of things, because everything is kind of set out into very short paragraphs, as something to kind of think about and something to reflect on. So as dads, particularly if you kind of got a new baby, you haven't got a lot of time. So this is something that people could just kind of pick up and read something in whilst they're kind of feeding the baby, or, is bedtime, whatever it sort of is. You kind of be on the tube, on the train, whatever in your lunch break, you could just read 10 minutes, because it's not going to require you to spend a huge amount of time reading a long chapter in order to get the most of the book.
Which is good, because, that's one of the things, isn't it? You become time poor very much straight away. And it's not until it's not until, you know, if you're lucky enough to be able to palm the kids off occasionally, that you realize how much more time there is in a day when they're
Yeah.
not there. I mean, obviously, you know, it's lovely to have them around and lovely to be able to spend time with them. But oh my goodness, I get so much more work done.
Yeah,
And then you still got an evening.
yeah, absolutely. And as you know, just into trying to kind of put this together, it is meant getting up at like 6 a.m. for like 7-8 months in order that I can find the time, because otherwise, you know, family life is just busy, you know, kind of things going on, the kids are doing stuff, you know, wife's doing stuff, and you want to be kind of fair to everyone. So you know, I still want to do my own things, whatever it is, but I don't want it to kind of take away from family time. So, you know, being really disciplined to kind of get up at, you know, 6 a.m. in order to write it was, you know, it was hard, but I got into it like a system then, you know, sort of to kind of get up in the morning, which was great. And now I kind of like just carry on as I am now.
And you know, now the book's published and out there, you can get some more sleep, which is a win, right?
Yeah, but now I kind of want to talk about it because I want people to know about it. That's the thing, Jimmy. So
Oh yeah.
yeah, try to share it as much as possible, because what I don't want is to kind of put that effort in and then for it to, you know, people not to access their information or to just sit in Amazon and no one ever kind of takes note of it or anything like that. But yeah, it's trying to talk to as many as people as possible now, just to kind of like share it, because, you know, ultimately that's what I wrote it for, is for it to be kind of read. So that's my sort of hope. So, you know, trying to speak to as many people as possible to talk about the book, and because I put the effort in, so I may
Yeah,
as well.
well, that's it. Yeah, spread the love of it. So, well, it sounds like a good time right now to do the big plug. So, go for it.
Yeah, so it's the book is called Be a Super Dad: Reflective Advice for Fatherhood. My name is Gareth Wall. It's available on Amazon. It's done as Kindle and a paperback. So yeah, please take a look. I'd love you to read it, and love to give me a review as well to please the Amazon algorithm gods. That would be really, really helpful.
I will stick a link into the blurb of this, and we'll share it on social media as well.
Amazing.
Gareth, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks, Jim. It's been fantastic.